Alright guys, welcome back to the show. And in the second half of the show, we've got Kyle and we've got Christian from Vanguard School. Guys, can you tell us about yourself a little bit?
Cool. Take it away, you got it, man. I'll go after.
Are you sure?
Yes, sir.
That's very polite of you.
I'm curious.
My name is Chris. I'm a coach here at Vanguard Gym. I'm under Douglas Esposito. I started in Stafford with Coach Kelly, and I also trained with Dalla regularly on the weekends. Kelly during the week, go down for Friday, open mat. I've been here since June of 2011. That sound about right? I've just been here coaching and training ever since.
Cool. Yeah, I train over at Leo Dallas, sort of like the main hub of all the big brothers. I started there around 2013, and then from then I just gradually started doing the kids and teens class. So I'm an instructor there, and sometimes when Dallas steps out, needs somebody to fill in, I'm always lending a helping hand. If you've been to the gym in the last year or two, you see me there. I'm there Monday through Friday. I'm just missing a bed. That's about it. Pretty much live there. Love the place, love the environment, and just can't say enough about it. Love the place. So that's me.
Did you and Ryan start together?
I know we actually started before. We got him into it. So yeah, I started before Ryan. My cousin's Ryan trains here at Vanguard Gym. We got him involved in Jiu-Jitsu, and then he found out that you guys were here and signed up a couple.
Did he come down to Dallas or?
No. Do you want to know the story? Like, it's a funny story. I mean, if you want to just go into it real quick. I know, obviously he's not here, but I have a cousin Ryan. We're a pretty close-knit family, and we see him all the time. My brother and I, we got Jiu-Jitsu. We fell in love with it. We started off in the basement, and we trained in the basement all the time. And then one day we went over to like a pool party. They had a pool in their backyard. It's like a family cookout type gimmick. And by that time we were pretty still new white belts, but we had a couple submissions, here and there. We were okay. And we decided to lay down some pool rafts in the backyard. And yeah, as funny as that sounds. Yeah, we laid a bunch of pool rafts down. We're like, yeah, let's show you some of this jiu-jitsu stuff. And he knew what MMA was. He's had an idea, and then caught him in a couple things. Had a good time, and ever since then he was hooked. He was addicted, and then he found Vanguard. And now from what I hear, he lives here too. He's pretty regularly.
If he's not with his chickens, he's here.
That's yeah. Well said.
That's kind of weird, man. You just put down some pull rafts, and he's like, "Yeah, this is one."
Yeah. Like if somebody were to observe it from like an outside view, like it'd be a little strange to watch. I'm not gonna. Yeah,
as far as first lessons go, though, there's been like a really good friend of mine, one of my best friends. He was like, what's this jiu-jitsu about and all this kind of stuff. And I said, well, we can show you. You got any mats? He didn't have any mats. We drove around trying to find a place that might have mats, like at a gym or a Gold's or something like that. It didn't have it. So finally we just, football field.
That's right.
So straight up, his first jiu-jitsu lesson was on a football field. And he's a black belt now. He's a Gracie Baja black belt.
That's so cool.
So he was like, yeah. So you can start any number of places.
Yeah, I was on my brother and I were like, before we got to the basement, we found mats. Man, we just carpeted it up. We were on the carpet for like a month, man. Just getting carpet burned.
These are all things I need to do with my family.
When we would deploy on ship, one ship we had, one of the first deployments I did, we had a wrestling mat in the gym, but then they retrofitted it because they had to fit women on, and so the gym got a lot smaller, so the wrestling mat went away. So we would just take cardboard boxes and riggers tape them together and grapple down on the well. So it was steel well deck with the Kark paint, the real textured paint. With the
respect
cardboard over it, and it would just get beat down, so you'd have to get more and tape it down, and just get beat down and beat. It was a little rough, but hey, that's what you do. What you got to do.
Yeah. Once you love it, you find a way how to do it. And if you come up that way, you're gonna have some pretty rugged jiu-jitsu in a good way.
That's how it was at Lloyd's first place was it was on the carpet too.
Again, this goes back to what Christian and I were saying this morning. It's like that type of training. Now, that doesn't necessarily happen too much anymore, but that rugged, hard, just train where you can, train when you can style of training, like that breeds like a special type of jiu-jitsu player.
You were saying it breeds. I was saying that those certain type of people are attracted
yes,
to
that
it.
too.
Like Chad had that group of black belts now.
Yeah.
But then when they all started, it was just this small group of guys. What is it, 10? 10 of
There's,
them?
yeah, it's like Song and Hole and
Paul, Todd.
Todd,
Mason.
all those cats.
Hey,
It was all there's probably about 10 dudes. There was like only 2 or 3 other people that trained there. So like to have that room where there was 15 people and today 10 of them are black belts, like that's pretty.
But like Kelly said, like those guys were predisposed. No matter what, they were going to find that kind of training.
For sure.
And we were talking about like how do we appeal to the masses? How do we get everybody who maybe needs like a little softer?
Yeah, not like that. Not like that.
Yeah, just the balance of being able to provide like the right training environment for everybody who walks into a jiu-jitsu gym, because not everybody's going to want the smash and pass, and not everybody's going to want the flow and keep it playful. So it's got to be a balance there.
Yeah.
No, my intro was not gentle. Kelly gave me some special love. I had so many choke marks on my neck. I got in trouble at work because they thought it was hickeys.
Oh, that's
It
hilarious.
was
Oh my
all
god.
burned up the side.
That's funny.
He's like, what do you care about
You
me?
probably weren't respecting the choke. You still don't.
Wait, where were you working that you almost got in trouble for hickeys?
What's that?
Where were you working where they were almost you almost got in trouble for
I worked at
hickeys?
Stafford Physical Therapy.
Okay.
I mean, that's like that at most places. They don't want you going to work with.
All marked up, yeah.
Marked up.
Oh,
That's funny.
I should probably do better about hiding my bruises, rolling with him.
Yeah. Me. That's full contact sport, you know.
Why can't I squish every once in a while?
Just a little bit, you know.
Man, let me ask a question real quick. So, like, me being as a purple belt and just getting promoted and being just heavily involved in like the jiu-jitsu scene, and it's the only martial art I've ever really been exposed to. Because you guys were talking about like the group of like the black belts that all train together and how cool that is and how important that is. How do you articulate that how do you articulate that to somebody who has no idea or who has never been in the martial arts scene? Like when I got promoted to purple belt, it was top 3, like one of the happiest moments I've ever felt, and like the amount of achievement that I felt and how difficult it is. And like I was posting about it and like on social media, and then it sort of hit me. I was like, oh, not in a negative way, but in a sense, I was like, I don't think anybody's going to be able to relate. Like they don't understand like how hard it is to do this. And I just didn't know if there was like a proper way to articulate it, or if you just really don't expect anybody to understand it in a sense. I don't know what you guys
Don't
think.
expect anybody to understand.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
I see people get like indignant or incredulous, or they kind of like, oh, I can't believe this guy doesn't know the difference between jiu-jitsu and karate. But look, they don't, and they don't have to, and it's okay, and that's part of what makes it special.
Right.
Like it's way more mainstream. 10 years ago, I knew pretty much anybody that was a black belt. 20 years ago, there was hardly any black belts anywhere other than a couple of Brazilians. Now you can't keep track of everybody that's that way, but this is still very niche. Part of what makes jiu-jitsu special is that it's hard.
Yeah.
And not everybody, it's not for everybody. You're going to come in and not everybody, especially in today's day and age, not everybody likes to be challenged in that way. People don't like to be challenged physically. People don't like to be challenged mentally. People don't like to be challenged emotionally. And this puts it all together.
Mm-hmm.
You get on the mat, you got to control your temper. You got to control your breathing. You got to control your gas. You got to learn, and like we were talking about earlier, solve problems under stress. And nobody's going to understand that, that hasn't done something along those lines. And so that's what makes it special, And the only way they're going to understand it is to go through it.
Sure.
Because if it was easy, everybody'd do it. But it's not. So that's why it was one of those top 3 moments of your life.
Yeah.
Because not everybody's going to feel that. Everybody else has got to, settle for having their kid being one of the. No, I'm just teasing. Having their kid graduating high school. No,
Sure. Yeah.
But it's it's valuable to you because of the time that you've put in, the sweat that you've put in, the relationships that you've put in,
Sure.
and the respect that you have for your coach, and that he's recognizing your accomplishment and your journey. Like that's huge. So nobody's going to be able to understand that. Like people people can't even understand the difference between jiu-jitsu and karate and taekwondo, and it's fun. I'm like, hey, what's this Seth ground karate or whatever? He's always talking about doing ground karate. Yeah, come on, I'm gonna,
That's funny.
do ground karate. Like I kind of like that.
Yeah.
At the hospital when Mike broke his hand, and the nurses are in the back trying to go talk about what's happening. They're like, yeah, he does jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, with the UFC, you can be like, oh, well, they do MMA. They do UFC. Like to most people, UFC is a style of fight, and it is. It is. But if they don't know what MMA is. They know what UFC is. They know the brand name, so they refer to the brand name. If people can even recognize that much, man, you're ahead of the curve.
Yeah, I can see that.
Sure. It's funny you say that. I was just going on about during a tour. Someone's like, "Do you do UFC here?" Yes, absolutely.
The correct answer. Yeah.
Because that's where they're coming from. That's their frame of reference. And if you're going to bridge that gap, you have to work from where they are to bring it. You can't be like, oh, you're not here already,
right?
Yeah. There's not really much of another analogy you can match it up against really well.
I mean, if people wrestled, there's something about this, right? There's only so many things where you can go head to head with somebody and go and have a beer with them afterwards. So boxing, Thai boxing, judo, jiu-jitsu, wrestling, even football. Football is very physical. So you got football players that understand that, and you'll have football players that find jiu-jitsu and really like it because of the contact and the challenge. But people just aren't gonna, they're just not gonna understand it unless they do it.
They participate. Yeah. I can see that.
So, Kyle, you were mentioning how you got your cousin Ryan started, and I heard you drop the word basement.
So,
So,
that's funny.
I just
Look at this. We got a professional over here. I love it.
Yeah.
So, just like real quick, like I said, my brother and I, we started in the basement, and it was weird. We had it was actually one of Dalla's students. His name was Phil, and he wasn't training as regular as he used to, but he ended up being a family friend, and he found out that we got a hold of jiu-jitsu, and then out of the kindness, of his heart, he came over every Sunday, and then he would train us in the basement, my brother and I, and just do like a private lesson for like an hour and a half, show us the technique, and then just beat us up for the rest of the time. It was great. It was a great time. It was a great time. So, after we would always hang out, we would always talk afterwards, and this sort of like the term got coined, like basement brothers. Obviously, my brother and I trained. We always trained in the basement, and that sort of has stuck with us and has followed us everywhere we went, and we sort of ran with it, and now we have the Basement Brothers podcast, which I'm trying to run with, and it's a good time. It's an awesome time, man. I love it. I love that I get the opportunity to talk to people and about stuff I really wouldn't have access to, like especially bringing it back around to jiu-jitsu. It's like that's like my main feed of people who I try to interview or try to talk to is people in jiu-jitsu. It's like you walk into a jiu-jitsu academy, you want to talk about like an eclectic group of individuals. I mean, we got SWAT officers, we have doctors, lawyers, you name it. It's just they all come together in one place. So, that's what I pick my people from, be able to have those cool discussions. So, but yeah, man, that's me. That's what I'm doing now. So, give it a listen if you can. Listen, Basement Brothers, the Basement Brothers podcast on iTunes, Google Play. Search it up. If you follow me on Facebook, Kyle Bennett, Instagram, Getting Gnarly.
The CTE episode was my favorite. Who was the
Thanks,
guy you
man.
brought on there?
His name is Brandon Holland. He was actually my athletic trainer, or he was the athletic trainer at my high school. Awesome guy, super knowledgeable. He's got some degrees under his belt. He actually trained. He's trained as well. I think he's in jiu-jitsu. He does a little bit of Muay Thai too. We had him on because he was really, really big into concussions and CTE, and he's started like a big movement within the high schools and trying to educate people on the severity of getting freaking hit in the head.
His backstory was crazy. He was talking about, he's like, I knew I did my job when I hit the guy so hard I couldn't see.
Yeah, and that was 20 years ago. It's like people just didn't know any better, and You know, I asked them, which was really eye-opening. I go, so obviously he's trained on what a concussion is, what it looks like, what it feels like to have a concussion. I said, Brandon, like how many concussions do you think you've had since you started like full contact sport? He's over 100, whether they're obviously they're not severe, but micro concussion or just anything like that. But that's bizarre, so bizarre, but.
Everybody I've listened to that podcast with, they immediately start reflecting back.
Yeah. It's important to think about. Like that's what like a lot of like the NFL is has been under some heat about it, and mixed martial artists are starting to become a popular thing to talk about and to really consider whether or not you want to get kicked in the head for another 10 years. So all about that brain health.
Well, and a lot of guys are way more up to date on it. And, talking about podcasts. Donald Cerrone was on Joe's, and he was talking about how he doesn't even spar anymore because he's just taking too much damage and it was too much, and he does better in the fights because he's working more skill, working more technique, working more timing, more drills, all that kind of stuff.
I'm trying to get a lot of the guys are kind of switching to the Thai style of training where they keep it a little bit more playful in practice.
I think it's a good movement for sure. Because people are just getting too beat up and busted up in practice, and then you're not ready for the fight.
Yeah, you underperform.
Yeah, because I've heard Robbie Lawler do the same thing. I think that he sort of almost, I don't know if it's a movement or not, but I've heard him talk about how he doesn't spar anymore. But I also recently heard him say that he went back to it because he had some beneficial, he found some benefits from actually sparring. But I'm not a fighter, so I don't know. It seems to make sense. Like if you've done your dues, if you fought before, you know how to fight. It's like, well, I don't see why you couldn't just work mitts or work the movement. But again,
I think if you have good training partners, the key is having good training partners that know how to push, but also aren't looking to that'll put the shots there, but let you know when something's there. Take advantage of your openings, help you develop your timing and that kind of thing, but not be out to just you got to put the ego aside and help people develop.
Man, that's probably like the toughest thing. I hear that all the time. I'm sure you guys have heard it too. Like whenever somebody is sparring, whether it's boxing or any form of striking,
Even rolling.
That too. But it's like it always escalates. It always escalates. Whether it starts at a 20%, but a lot of the times it ends at 100. And it's just talking about head trauma. It's worse when you're striking.
I feel like a lot of that is you start getting different skill sets. You want a sparring match, like a lot of us sitting in the room right now, we're instructors. We've been doing this for a long time. You get a guy that's brand new, maybe he's really strong, he's athletic. Especially when they're young, you always feel like you have so much to prove. So they start going hard. And the guy that's actually teaching the class, he's like, for whatever reason, maybe he doesn't want to lose credibility. Maybe he's just tired of getting his head bashed in by the 180, 190, 200 pound guys that don't understand the meaning of going light.
Sure.
And then it just starts to build and build and build. Then you get the guys like a prime example, Marcellus, one of our guys at the school. He's just naturally heavy-handed. And we'll say, okay, we're going to go 40%. And he's throwing slow, but he hits so hard that the other guy's like, well, I thought we were going 40%. Now he kicks it up to 60. And Marcellus is like, okay, we're stepping it up. So next thing you know, we look over and there's a slugfest going on in the corner. And poor, Marcellus is giving some of the kid a concussion. It was like,
and I'm not hitting on I don't know Marcellus. I'm not saying this about, but in general, that's just a combination of ego and lack of communication. And man, we've all been there. We've all been there. And the challenge is to put the ego aside, communicate. When somebody starts to ramp it up, instead of just putting it back down, be like, hey, But anyways, I'm not. It's
really hard though to see what kind of damage you're taking on. Like reflecting back after listening to the episode, I probably spent most of the second half of high school being slightly concussed. The worst concussion I actually ever got was in jiu-jitsu. But
That's funny.
That's neither here nor there.
I definitely had some times in high school where I'd wake up in different classes and why did I get here?
Man.
What was where'd you get the worst concussion in jiu-jitsu?
It was at Pans. It was my second or third to last match before the finals. I just caught a heel. The guy did it by accident. And I thought it was fun, and we got back to the hotel, and I didn't realize till probably like a year or two later.
Is this when you were a white belt?
This is when I was a white belt.
Okay.
And the guy kicked me in the eye. I thought it was fine. It was no big deal.
Right.
But then when I got back to the hotel, the room started moving.
Nice.
Couldn't sleep, had the headache. I didn't know any of that, what was going on. I was like, I just don't feel good. I'm mad because then the finals went. And I ended up staying in the hotel room I think I just stayed in there by myself for like a day. And I don't know what's going on.
Scared, terrible.
That's rough, man. So hopefully, that's not still happening.
No.
But now you got to take into consideration. We all know, but that's like in a competition setting, things happen, and things can happen. Things can happen on the mats too, but just without question, it's going to be more intense when you're paying for a competition and you're standing next to somebody who wants that gold medal.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're going to get hit with a limb. Sometimes you're going to get a forearm to the nose.
Yeah.
And that's fine. I mean, you just want to do your best to minimize it in practice and in places where you can control it, because it is a contact sport. There's you got bodies moving through space and time, and things are gonna clonk sometimes. But you can do a lot to minimize it during training and be safer and not take that cumulative drain brammage.
Man, Doug, you said you were talking about like communication earlier, just being able to talk to whether it's your training partners or your coaches. But it's like, how important is it, do you think, as a coach or an instructor, to really communicate the ability to control yourself like that? Because I feel like to me, I just feel like that is so important to be able to just to talk about that and to implant the image in your students' brain, just so they understand. Because some guys just might not know. They just might not know.
Yeah, 100%. And it's different for everybody. Some people, you can talk about it and they get it. Mm-hmm. Some people, I think, I don't know. I'm having a couple different thoughts, and I think part of it has to do with somebody's ability for empathy. I think, like if they can listen, and we talk about dealing with different types of learners, physical or visual learners, auditory learners, psychomotor learners. Sometimes they have to feel it, sometimes they have to see it, sometimes they have to hear it. Nobody's pure one or the other, so sometimes they need to feel it a little bit more. I've had to try all number of ways to get that message through. And I've failed in all different, like I think this person needs a good talking to. Well, that didn't work. Well, I think this person needs to be choked within an inch of their life. Well, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So sometimes you have to take a couple different approaches. Chris is one of my, he's my senior guy here and teaches a lot of the classes, and he's really good about reaching out to me when there's a problem child or somebody that's got some issues with that type of thing, and we'll discuss, okay, well, this is so-and-so, there's different ways to approach it depending on who it is, and is this the first time we're talking to him about it? Is it the third time we're talking to him about it? We've got basically rules where if somebody gets hurt and you're rolling with them, we're gonna talk about it and make sure and do everything that we can to make sure it doesn't happen again. Right. And then if it does happen again, you're out for as long as the other person's out. And so when you tell the person, okay, if you guys are rolling, right, and you hurt him, and I'm like, hey, listen, hopefully it's not too bad. It's not, something, he'll be better. And I mean, look, sometimes things just happen. Like I said, space and time, and people would be like, man, I zigged, he zagged. We clunked heads, stuff like that happens. But there's times where submissions go on too fast, too hard, don't let go soon enough. Somebody's ramping stuff up, and they're on their 20th submission in a 4-minute rolling session, stuff like that. So if you hurt him last week and then you're rolling with Chris and you hurt him and he's out for 2 weeks, guess what? You're off the mat for 2 weeks too. Absolutely. So when we talk about it to you, I'll be like, listen, whether it was your fault or it wasn't, understand if there's a pattern, you know, what's the common denominator here? These guys both got hurt, and you were the one that they were rolling with. It's nothing personal, but if he's out for 2 weeks, you're out for 2 weeks. And we really don't have to enforce that too much, because people kind of, like, once you get to the point, like, okay, you know, like, even if there's ego, if there's other stuff, and like, oh, I don't really want to be off the mat for long, so maybe I'll just kind of, you know, pull it back. But we don't usually get to that point. But we do have it on the rules. It's on the wall. It's printed. Talk about it. That's been kind of our solution for it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's always a struggle trying to figure out where to dial it in. You know, I struggle with it when I'll roll too hard myself. Trying to even think about how to explain that to newer people, about the different gears of rolling. Man, it's so difficult, and I understand it to an extent. Like, if you don't have anything in your arsenal, or you have one technique, it's the only thing you can call on. So if it's not working, you're just going to try harder, and that's the thing to explain. Like, if it's not working, you know, try to regroup, try to think about the next move. But that's hard to do if they don't have a lot of things.
And so as a senior guy, as a coach and as a senior guy and having senior guys, I think that, like, yeah, we've got a lot of tough white belts and blue belts and all that kind of stuff here, but we've also got a lot of empathetic blue belts, purple belts, brown belts. And, you know, when somebody's first starting out rolling, who do I put them with?
Senior belts.
I put them with Chris. I put them with Jimmy. I put them with, you know, my purple belts. You know, so the guys that are going to control the situation, and so it's a learning situation for the other person. So they're going to help, like, okay, hey, look, you're doing this, try this, so that by the time they finish rolling, they've at least learned one thing. When I'm rolling with somebody new or somebody that's newer, or like a white belt that's, you know, and I find out, well, their mount escapes are horrible. Then, you know, what as a white belt, what should you be working on? Your escapes, like all of your escapes, like your positional stuff. Because if you so I'll be like, okay, look, here's some details that you're missing. I'll mount. I'll be like, okay, here's some details you're missing on elbow knee. Here's some details you're missing on upo. Let's put them together. Let's do that. Or maybe it's just one. Maybe it's just elbow knee. Right. Like, hey, you got a bump. You got to do this. You got to do that. Get your head here. Get your elbow there. So we'll go through it. And then when we're rolling, I'll just keep coming back to that position. Like, I won't do anything like you know, like as a senior person, when you're rolling with somebody, you want to work your game, but part of it should be like, okay, how is this person going to be better when I'm done rolling with them?
Especially if it's the first time.
And, well, yeah, especially. But I mean, I try to do it with everybody. Like, I always try to have, because people are, as a coach, people are always looking for a lesson. Sure. And if I don't say, hey, this, and this, they'll be like, hey, coach, is there anything that I could be doing better? Right. You know, right. Even you know, when we roll, we'll kind of debrief. Like, man, I really like that entry, or this is really, you know. Or just thanks for the great roll, that was awesome, or whatever. Yeah. You get there's that feedback. But with newer people, and even, you know, like I said, if somebody's a lot of times white belt, they're bucking for blue belt, they're trying to show you everything they know, and it's like, hey, dude, I just need to see your escapes. Yeah. Like, just show me your brilliance in the basics, you know, like, because you know, I don't care if you know a flying barambolo that leads to a go-go plata with a pinky toe hold or whatever, you know. Like, I want to know that you can get out of the mount, get out of the side control. So that's what I generally try to focus on with a lot of people, is just get in a position, help them with, like, okay. And if I get into a position with somebody and they just don't have a plan, I'll be like, okay, what's your plan here? Oh, I don't really know any, or I've got this move and this move. Okay, well, let's do that. And then we'll talk through it, and then we'll go back to rolling, and then that, you know, and maybe it's something like they keep putting their elbow across their center line. You know, I'll roll with purple belts or blue belts, and it's little smaller details. So again, I just try to put them in that position, and because you remember better when you're compromised. Oh yeah. Right? If I just say, hey, don't put your elbow across your center line, you're like, oh, okay, of course not. Yeah. But once you start doing it and you keep getting cross-faced and choked and arm-barred and whatever because you're doing it, then you're like, oh, okay. So that's generally when I'm rolling with people, I try to find something that I can help them get better with, and I'll work my game as well. So I think that's huge for rolling, especially as a senior person. Like, okay, I know what I'm working on. How am I going to help them be better after this roll?
Sure, that's so important. So important. Like, I try to do that with like just the people fresh off the street coming in there, because my whole mindset is like I just want them to love it as much as I love it because it's so fun. Like it's so fun. It's like I wouldn't want anybody to get turned away because they had somebody who was trying to prove to their instructor that
I like
they,
that a lot.
You know what I mean?
I like
it's
that a lot.
I just want to help them out. I just want them to like it as much as me. So I always try to take the white belts under my wings and try to show them the way. You know, just make sure that no one's out to get them and that this is just how the game's played sometimes. So you know, try to build the culture, build the cult, if you will.
Let's stick with culture
Okay.
and drive.
Okay.
Let's
Okay.
stay away from the
more positive
words.
words. More positive words. Okay, that's fine.
Some Kool-Aid, run away.
Just finished brewing a batch.
Just kidding. So, like I've had the pleasure of knowing at least half the people in the room for a couple of years, being introduced as whether it's training partners or as additional coaches when I come to visit them. I know that I probably annoyed Christian a few times within the past couple of months because I'm rubbing his face that I don't have to teach when I come here. And then he got me back pretty well. It's like, yeah, so Mel, we're gonna go over triangle defenses. I'm like, yeah, that's awesome. You're gonna help us with a triangle defense. I was like, whoa, wait a minute. I just been teaching for 3 hours. Yeah, I know. But no, it's really great, you know, working with, you know, the guys I got in this room. I built a lot of friendships over the years, just through jiu-jitsu alone. A lot more long-lasting friendships. It was weird. It's funny. I never thought that I would say, after leaving my hometown, grew up in Richmond, that I probably built friendships outside of my family through doing this that are stronger than some of the friendships that I've made with people that I grew up with. It's just it changed my mindset a lot. You know, I've always been a hardworking person. I've always wanted to achieve more than, you know, just what's good enough. I don't want to settle. I always want to see how much better can I make my life. And as I got older, it went from how much better can I make things for myself to how can I make such a difference in my own life that it's affecting others. I didn't develop that mentality until I started doing this. So that's the same thing I try to pass on, I guess, when I'm dealing with the kids. I know, Christian, you teach the kids here. Kyle, you do the same. Master Dollars, right? I guess as a kids instructor, I like to hear his perspective and the thoughts, you know, of other kids coaches. What do you like to do to instill these same values in the next generation that's coming up? You know? What about you? What do you like to do?
You mean as far as what do I like to focus on with the kids,
Yeah.
or with the kids? Yeah, you know, jiu-jitsu it's pretty easy to use jiu-jitsu as a platform to help kids to make better decisions. But for me, just the regular stuff, it seems to do a lot for them. The way we're doing the classes, pushing them, giving them physical activity. You know, we have mat chats almost every class. But we focus on a word each month, and it might be like this month we're talking about thankfulness. It's Thanksgiving coming up, so we want all the kids to talk about something they're thankful for. So those are some of the things we focus on. You know, a little bit of rolling, a little bit of a mat chat. That seems to do the trick so far.
Nice. What about you, Kyle?
That's cool, man. See, this is one of the reasons why it's like I want to talk to more instructors who teach teens and the younger kids, just so I can get some better ideas. For the longest time, I taught the teens class how the adults class was taught to me. Just in regards that there's a technique and we do the technique, and I always try to joke and have fun with the kids. And but yeah, for me, what I always used to lose sight of is that the kids aren't going to like jiu-jitsu as much as I am. Like I was telling Christian earlier, like a lot of, like when you get to the teenagers, it's a little bit different, but it could still apply. But like for the little kids, they're not there because they want to know how to triangle somebody. It's like, no, like they have no choice. They're there because their parents are there. You know what I mean? So, so I don't know, man. I just try to make it as fun as I can, as relatable as I can, and hopefully they get attached to it to the point to where they can start seeing how to benefit from it themselves. You know what I mean? I like the chats. It's very important to be able to talk to the kids and to really pick their brains, because a lot of them may not have an opportunity to be able to talk like that at home or wherever. But yeah, man, I just try to make it fun, relatable, and I want them just to come back. That's my big goal. Come back, have fun, and stick with it. So You know, whether it be games or making things a little bit more fun than they should, or making things more fun. You know, whatever it may be. So that's what I try to do.
I know that down there at the lab with us, with some of the kids, I've been kind of labeled as not the fun coach.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm fun with the kids. I do let them have fun. They don't run in terror when they see me, but it's one of those deals. As soon as I step on the mat, they can be running around like chickens with their heads cut off, and they see me, and everybody's standing at attention.
No, you need this. Coach Nuss
I mean, I don't know. Just I guess because of my upbringing, I did have experience in martial arts prior to coming to the lab, but the only thing I hadn't done was grappling. There's no form of grappling. And I've always been involved in different sports. Just people in my family were disciplined. It was just required. Respect was required. So with that traditional background, I brought that along with me when I started teaching kids. But for me, I think the biggest thing I try to instill in them, especially our competition kids, is that I'm not trying to turn you into a bunch of little killers. I'm here because I'm trying to teach young kids how to be leaders. I feel like that's something that's lost on a lot of generations. I know my younger sister, who's 18, most people her age, they don't know how to be a leader. They always want to follow everything that they see me do. And the work ethic that a lot of young people have, you know, it makes me worried. It makes me worried about the future, because when we get older, when we start to slow down and we're in our golden years, these are the people that are going to be leading the country. These are going to be the people that are leading society. And what are we leaving behind for the next generation? So for them, I always remind them, I'm like, you know, your belt ranks. You know, you guys get promoted. That's not right. You don't come in here and buy these belts. You earn those. When your instructor promotes you to the next rank, it's not just because your skill sets improved. It's because you improved as an individual. We're looking for not just that technical growth, but personal growth. Like, there's a level of character I expect one of my senior belts as a kid student to display that I wouldn't necessarily expect from someone who's only been training for a month.
Sure.
And I constantly remind them of that, you know, when you're standing in line, when we bow in class and we bow out of class, you know, everybody that's standing behind you, just like the adults, they're watching you, they're paying attention, they want to go up towards where you are. And when you're younger, you're much more easily influenced. Kids are like sponges, man. They soak up everything, whether it's from their friends, whether it's from, you know, their parents, instructors, what they see on TV. And I'll look at some of the kids who've been with us for 2 years and say, hey, you know, when you first started and you were in the back of the line, you paid attention to your instructors, but you also paid attention to your classmates. And whatever you saw them doing, you did. And they stopped and thought, yeah, that's right. I said, so if you guys are doing everything you're supposed to do and you're setting the right example, if you're helping by being a young leader in class, you know, do you think that your classmates are going to do the same or do the opposite?
Sure.
So they're going to do the same. I said, so if you guys are goofing off and you're not exemplifying the character that comes with the rank that you've earned, what do you think the white belts are going to do? What do you think the yellow belts are going to do? And they stop and like, oh, yeah, we need you guys to help us out. Because there's only a handful of coaches, but there's like 40 or 50 kids. Yeah. They're not always going to look up and see a coach. They might look up and see one of their classmates who is getting closer to the highest rank they can achieve in our Jiu-Jitsu program. And all they know is, I want to be like that kid. I want to be like the kid that's helping lead in the warm-ups. I want to be the kid that the coach is calling on to help out the younger group of kids with the technique that they don't know yet. And I want the kids who are coming up to understand it's more than just, can you do an arm bar?
Right, right. I have to admit, because my son's in a couple of your classes, one of his favorite things is when he's told that, all right, you can lead the warm-up exercise. Dude, he gets the biggest grin on his face. He's like, cool, I can do it. So yeah, it's fun to watch that from my side as a parent, especially since I also train too. It is so heartwarming to see that kind of thing, and he's actually excited to do it. You know?
You guys are hitting on a very important tenet of sport. Sport's number one value to us as a human, as humans, as culture, and all that kind of stuff, is the ability to develop values and put kids into inoculate them to adversary, or inoculate them towards challenges, learning how to triumph, learning how to lose, learning how to get back up and stay in the fight, and all that kind of stuff. Like, sport's number one value to us is the ability to develop character and apply values
in a non-secular, churchy belief system type thing. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Like a lot of times people get into sport. I see a lot of coaches that they want to make. I want to coach the next world champion. I want to coach this. I want to coach that. Right? But how many world champions are you going to produce in your sport? Maybe none. But how many people's lives are you going to be able to touch and help them be better problem solvers? Help them, And the great thing about jiu-jitsu or martial arts, even more so, and wrestling, football, soccer, all that is great, but you don't learn the humility, You don't learn the humility in soccer that you do in a team sport, in an individual sport. Does that make sense? You don't learn the true self-confidence in a team sport that you learn in a one-on-one type of situation. I don't think. I see a lot of team sports where there's confidence, but it's kind of cocky. It's a little bit more whatever. But sport's just an amazing opportunity to introduce kids and teach them values and all that. So having those values and having that attached to it, I think is huge. You're hitting on, hey, leadership, all these great things that come from it. We do the same thing. We'll have the older kids, if they are B class, if they want to come to the A class, they can come to the A class, and we'll use them as kind of not full assistant instructors, but same thing, like helping with the little kids or running an exercise or something like that, and that starts to teach them about leadership, and that's huge. It's just a great opportunity.
We spoke on the good things we do with some of our students, but then there's always we do have those few that just kind of make you scratch your head when they come in. I know you got a few good stories. I got a few. I know you have a few good ones. But what are some like the craziest things you've heard as an instructor from some of your students? Or just things that they'll say or do.
I don't have any personally. Like I said, I just teach the teams, and I don't really get exposed to too much of it, but I can only imagine some of the stuff that gets said on a jiu-jitsu mat, especially if someone is new or they're not familiar with the culture. So if you guys have stories, I'm interested. That'd be funny.
We had one kid who were showing something. It was like me and Reed, and he looked at us and he was like, "Coach Reed, is that even a move?" He's just being honest, just asking.
Yeah.
That's nice about kids. They're always pretty honest about their questions.
Yeah.
There's no bull from them.
Not to stray off, but everything that we were talking about with the values and the leadership and the self-confidence and all that applies to the adults too. Like people act like teaching kids and adults and the benefits that it gives are different, but they're not. I've seen people build self-confidence, feel like they can defend themselves, social, everything from social skills to hard skills to problem-solving skills, and at 55, if you think about people that that have been training for 6, 7, 8 years, think about when they first came to the school versus now. There's a lot of people when you're around that, you see that personal journey for everybody. So it's cool to as you guys get into, once you're around more or longer and start teaching more of the adults and stuff, you'll see the same thing. You'll see growth from the adults that's almost rivals the kids. Cool. It's pretty cool. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to rewind it back to that, but.
It's funny because you hit the nail on the head. As soon as you started saying that, I started thinking about all of the adults that started after me. Some of the ones that started with me. I even thought about some of my own growth because we got a lot of people at the school down there very awkward. When they first started, they were very awkward. They didn't really talk to a lot of people.
Most of us are still awkward.
Yeah, we are pretty still awkward. A little awkward group of people. I know I didn't speak much when I first started. I think I had maybe 4 or 5 people at the school I latched on to, and outside of that, my response to everything was just a thumbs up. Like, I just didn't talk to anyone. Professor would walk around like, hey man, big dog, you doing all right? I had like a 300. Remember Chris Hughes, man?
Oh,
they freaking landed on me on a Saturday, and they were like, "No, you good?" I'm like, I felt the front of my ribs touch my spine. It was pretty bad. I was just like, "You good?" I'm like, "I'm just lay here for a second."
Yeah, which Inoculation though is that he was like about twice Mel's weight, and the dude just goes airborne.
Yeah.
And the look on Mel's face, priceless.
You could see the look
I'm
of terror
telling you.
as he falling. I didn't have room to move. Like, there was no time, there was no space. It was just like a giant shadow about to descend upon my body. I'm like,
Armageddon right there, dude.
Yeah, man. I don't know. I think it's just almost undeniable that to say that growth doesn't happen in jiu-jitsu. It's like it does. And again, it's like I've only ever done it, so I'm sure it happens in other martial arts as well. But if you put in the time and you put in the work and you put in the effort, it's like you will inevitably come out a better person. There's just no way around it. Even if you think that you're already a good person, which is a funny thought, but you will for sure come out a better person with a different view of the world and a different view of yourself. It's one of the reasons I like it, man. I've always thought of jiu-jitsu like a giant mirror. It's just it shows who you are. It shows what kind of person you are under pressure, how much heart you have, how far you're willing to push yourself. How hard are you willing to go to achieve your goals? Like if you stick around, you will see changes. And I hate to make it sound like this whole thing like a sales pitch for jiu-jitsu, but it's like I apologize for it. And there's a lot of other people out there who talk about it the same way that we talk about it today. But still, people talk about it because it's true. We're not making up stuff here. It's great.
The reality check, man, that you get from this is just unreal. The first time I competed, stepping out there, I've done different sports growing up.
Yeah.
I competed before, but nothing like this. I stepped onto the mat. It was a white belt. I think I just got my first strike. Very first tournament was submission only. I got flying triangle in like 30 seconds, like in novice division. So I was scratching my head a lot for that one. So I'm like, I didn't even know what that was until one of the higher belts explained to me what happened. I'm like, I can do that as a white belt? I didn't know what was going on, but it was, I think that it's interesting because not just for your own personal growth, but you start seeing that with everybody. When they have that moment of clarity, when that reality check really hits them. And the biggest one for me is you see guys that, they spend their entire life lifting weights. And they think that because they're big and they're strong, that means that, I'll always do great in a physical altercation. And then you see some 130-pound blue belt chick tie him up in a pretzel, and they're just sitting there like they have no rebuttal to that. They had like absolutely no response. And a lot of the guys, they can't handle it. You start seeing how fragile people's egos are, when they come in. I found that most guys that train, I want to say for every student we've had come through the door that's pushing 200, for every one of them that stays, there's like 9 or 10 guys from anywhere from 140 to 175. 9 or 10 females, any of them from 100 to like 140 that stay and train after they see how beneficial this is. But it's normally, you get the guy that he's used to his athleticism or his size getting him by, and when that can no longer work, then you start to beg the question, well, how much is your personal growth important to you?
Right. I was gonna say that then comes a time where you're at a crossroad, whether you see how beneficial it can be in regards to, I can do this, or where the ego does come into play where it's like you just walk out the door like bullshit.
Yeah, again, we got the sign over the door, no egos, and I know people don't always pay attention to it, but I think it's really important. When I was looking at opening this place, I was talking to a friend of mine, and he he's a police officer out in California. He was in the Marine Corps with me. Great operator. If I was going to be in a gunfight, he's one of the 5 or 10 people I would want on my side, like just hands down. Great mindset. Not going to freak out under pressure. Has all of those things. From doing jiu-jitsu, but from war fighting and being in the Marine Corps and being learning problem solving under stress in different situations, right? A lot of training and some real world. But he was we were at the boat locker down here at Quantico for a retirement, and he came out for it, and he was like, "Man, I wish you were opening a school by me." I was like, "Well, why is that? You're in California. There's places lousy with jiu-jitsu places." Like, "Yeah, man, I went into a couple, and there's
all these like 17-year-olds mad dogging me, and they're like wanting to beat my ass, and I know they're going to be able to because that's all they do all day is hang out and do jiu-jitsu, and I've done a couple of, and I just get balled up and I'm not learning anything, and it's like it struck me. I had a real epiphany there. I was like, and you were talking about the culture here, like it's scary for people to walk in the door, and we deal with this all the time. Like, oh, they're gonna punch me, they're gonna choke me, they're gonna, like that's a scary thing. And for somebody as, combatively accomplished as Matt to be saying to me, man, I wish you were open. It really rung through to me that, man, you're gonna have to go bend over backwards to make the place, accepting and friendly and respectful of everybody coming in, because it's really tough. And police officers, military guys, people that are used to being the man, it's really tough on their egos to come in here and have some 15-year-old tap them out in 30 seconds.
Yes,
They're used to being out there, gun, stick, radio, dog pile, handle, and then they come in here and they don't have any of those tools. And the ones that realize, man, there's something to this. I need to keep coming back and getting my ass kicked until I'm not getting my ass kicked anymore, so that I've got this. They just make way better, way more common sense officers. We've got some guys that train here, and it's like, man, if I ever got pulled over by one of them, I think it would go a lot better, because they're respectful to everybody. They're they don't have anything to prove. But it's tough for some guys that are used to being the man to come in and have that. So, I'm kind of getting off topic, I know, but it's huge to be able to put that aside and train and reach out to those people and make it accessible. So it's tough. It's a tough job.
Man, there's something about knowing that you can take a hit to the head, or get yourself out of a choke. That's really confidence building.
It's an inoculation of violence.
Yeah.
Jiu-Jitsu is an inoculation of violence. If you can come in and get through that and learn how to deal with that, then when the real thing happens, you're going to be able to deal with it. I have police officers that have been after doing jiu-jitsu for 3-4 years, they get into something, they'll come back and they'll say, you know what, thank you for saving a life. And it wasn't mine, it was the guy that I had to deal with. I had an officer that told me, look, 7-8 years ago, I had the same situation and I had to shoot and kill the guy because I didn't have the tools to deal with it. And I had to kill the guy. And it was a good shoot and no issues and whatever, but that's a lot to carry around, right? So to, 7-8 years later, after doing 3 or 4 years of jiu-jitsu, to be able to come back and say, man, I was able to save this guy's life. Like, I could have shot this guy and been dead to rights, but I didn't have to. And now his family and his friends and whatever, he's going to jail, but he's still got a chance on the other side of that, So sure. That's huge. And then other police officers will be like, they're so present, and their mind is, they're not, with the inoculation of violence thing, when they do get into it, they're like, okay, first this happened, then I applied this hold, we went through the window, this is what happened, we fell down the stairs, I used they'll say bent arm lock instead of kimura or whatever, but they're not in panic mode. They're not, oh crap, oh my gosh. Like most people are when violence jumps off, they don't know what to do. They're fight or flight, they're just like panic. But to be able to know, after a violent encounter like that, to be able to be like, this happened, and to be able to do it on the stand, in court, and all that kind of stuff, it's a huge thing for law enforcement and everything. I'm not trying to beat up or get on law enforcement people, but it's that for anybody, that inoculation of violence, that problem solving under stress, huge. Yeah, this is huge jiu-jitsu commercial, isn't it?
I was like, we are definitely pioneering for the art right now. I can't think of one moment where we didn't spend doing this entire.
How about this? Is there anything about jiu-jitsu you don't like?
I was just about to ask.
That's a really good question. I'm sitting there like, man, is it? Huh.
Don't say no either. You have to have an answer.
I know I did have to have an answer. Like, I know the pressure's on. The pressure's on. Well, I know the first time when I first started, it was rough getting like my tail handed to me up and down the mat by everyone. Half my size, half my age.
half my size.
I mean, it was just crazy. But at the same time, I'm a stubborn person, and I had enough common sense to realize I'm like, okay, there's a high school kid that's tying me up in a pretzel when I'm clearly bigger, stronger, and faster, and I just can't beat him in the position. I got to learn this. I got to figure this out. I think the one thing that probably does kill me, well, not really kill me, but it took a little while to get used to. I found that with Jiu-Jitsu academies, it's slightly different, each one that you go to. The culture's still the same, still very inviting. You got some schools that are extremely traditional. Everything is formal. You have some schools where everything is very informal. Like, you know, it's really weird. I'll go somewhere and I've gone and visited schools and trained with other people on the team. And I've had white belts and blue belts walk up, no question, you know, no problem. Hey, you want to roll? And then flip side of that, I'll go to a school where some of them are nervous to ask me to roll. Like, the one of the higher belts has to push in my direction. I have to go ask them. And that was very strange for me. Being that I started with traditional martial arts, it was almost like a no in a lot of schools I went in. You know, you don't approach the higher belt approaches you. But me having a nonchalant attitude, I don't care what belt color you got around your waist. If I'm not sweating and I still want to get a roll in, you know, by all means. I think the thing that probably killed me the most, though, is being that I'm a smaller practitioner, especially no-gi. No-gi, man, if I was rolling with the heavier guys and they never met me, they don't know how long I've been doing this, they would always take me lightly, and then the look of confusion on their face when they're having a harder time with me than they expected to would always start to get under my skin, because you shouldn't take anyone lightly on a jiu-jitsu mat. You don't know what anybody's capable of. And then in the gi, it was different. You know, you put your gi on, you put your belt on, and now I've got everyone trying to rip my head off because I'm 100 pounds lighter than everyone in school. They're like, well, I can't catch them. I'm pretty sure I can catch that little guy. I'm like, guys, I got to get up and work tomorrow. Like, I'm not 18. Well, I mean,
wait till you're a black belt. You think you're trying to rip your head off now? Just wait till you're a black belt.
Someone told me the same thing. Like, the look of terror on my face was so real. I'm like, can I just stay here? Do I have to go any further?
You should have seen when he got his purple belt, right? Everybody had this look of, there's my next target. And everyone behind him. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not rolling.
It was bad.
I had somebody actually say that to me, like in all seriousness. Like when I got promoted, like they came up to me, like in a sense, like called me out. I was like, man, you like nonchalant, like calling me out right now because I got promoted and you want to like try to take my hat off. It was like the weirdest thing. Yeah, so I could back up that.
Traditionally, purple belt is the injury belt. It's the one where people really start gunning for you, and you really don't want to tap, and you don't want to give up. You know, so that's where more people get. I mean, there's injuries across the board, but purple belt is like the main one. Yeah. How about the rest of you guys? Do you guys have things you don't like about jiu-jitsu?
Ooh, man, it's again just to sound like a jiu-jitsu fanboy. All the pros are so big that the negatives are just so small and minute. But one of the negatives that I have is like I started no gi. I didn't have a gi. I didn't have money to buy gi, and so no gi was jiu-jitsu to me. And a lot of people like that's not jiu-jitsu. Like they talk down on it. And like I have people who show up for no gi class, halfway through the no gi class, and they'll sit and wait for gi to start. It's like, hey man, get on the mat. Well, jiu-jitsu. Yeah. Like, so it's the only thing that sort of just bugs me. But again, personal preference. People, you know, whether they have the reasons why they like the gi, reasons why they don't like the no gi. Me, like I said, I fall in love with it as a whole. I have a gi on, don't have a gi, doesn't matter to me. I'm just gonna roll. So.
Yeah, we'll roll. One guy's no gi, another guy's gi. One guy's wearing his pants, another guy's wearing his jeans. Like whatever. We're just like roll. Whatever, you know.
Yeah, just whatever. Yeah. So.
What about you, man?
I'm trying to think. I guess it's that whole. Actually, you know what it is? The whole, and it's just the knowledge that is lacking on the outside. That everyone comes in. Oh, you do that ground card that you were talking about earlier. It's like no, it's completely different. I mean, that's just like frustrating, but that's the only thing I can really come up with is that some people just don't want to understand it at all. And others get in here is like, oh wait, what's it called? I like getting those people because you can start getting them to learn. But the other ones, they're just like, oh yeah, I don't care what it's called.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. You leave me alone, I'll leave you alone. We're good.
How about you guys?
Gi burn.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I went home one night and my wife looks at me and is like, "Is that a hickey?" I'm like, "No." "Is it a rash?" I'm like, "No." She's like, "What the hell happened?" I'm like, "You know, Zach, go ask him."
That's funny.
Gi rubbed right across my neck.
Now that you mention it, I've had my wife tease me with the same thing.
Yeah, it's
She's
terrible.
like, "Who's sucking on your neck?" Nobody was sucking on my
I
neck.
had a bright pink, like, whole side of my neck, and then the other half was white. It's terrible. It's the absolute worst. No, I would say, in all seriousness, probably the worst thing is, it's kind of what he said, just the lack of knowledge and then respect for it, because you always find that people like, well, it doesn't work. Okay, come on the mat. There are white belts that train for like 6 months that will prove otherwise.
Yeah.
There's such a huge difference of what goes on when you actually train and when you don't train, and I think it's that lack of really understanding that this stuff does work. It's not going to work in the beginning because you don't know it, but that's anything in life. Look at English majors, math majors. It's not going to work for you because you don't study it all day like they do. It's one of those things that, the more you do it, the more it becomes second nature. So,
What about you, Chris?
Ooh.
Chris is like,
I got a list.
I just go with that one on that one right there.
Probably the biggest gripe I have about jiu-jitsu is the politics. That's probably something that people don't talk about very often, and it's a very awkward and uncomfortable subject. It is definitely the politics. People from one school not being allowed to roll at another school, or feeling very uncomfortable to go over there. That's got to be my biggest gripe. I have a kid who trains under us, and he's friends with another kid, and they've trained a little bit, but I didn't realize it wasn't a public thing. They had to go somewhere else and meet up and train together, and I saw his dad, and he's a great guy. His kid's really good. And I was like, hey, you guys should come train at the gym, or Jake can go over there, whatever. And he was like, no, I can't do it because of the politics. He's like, I'm so sorry. And
That wasn't from us though. It was because of the other school.
yeah. It was the other school, and the dad was really apologetic and embarrassed, and that drives me nuts. The kids, the politics go so far that they affect kids from being. I don't like when people say they can't tell their students they can't train at other schools. That drives me nuts.
Good point, man. I agree 100%.
Yeah.
I think that comes from insecurity and worrying about losing students and stuff like
Insecurity, and I think it might be an old school
that.
mindset.
For sure. Like that. Oh, we got the secret sauce over here.
Yeah.
Battle at the beach days, and this school versus this school. That'd be cool if they brought some of that back.
Yeah, I'm all down for dojo storming, man.
Let's go back to the dojo storming days, right?
I'm down for that, man.
We're gonna visit other schools,
That's
whether they like it or not.
That might fix
I remember that
if we
giant
go back
thing
to the
by the banner.
dojo store,
Just
that
flying.
might fix some of the politics.
Yeah, right.
Oh man, so we just went from speaking positive about jiu-jitsu to turning people away. That was very, very backwards.
Man,
in our
it's a
thinking.
bit-
No, see, I think it's good to look at both sides. I think it's good to look at both sides.
We have
for sure.
a 45-minute praising moment, so we can have 10 minutes.
Fair and unbiased, right?
Or just like kind of like the prescription medication commercial. Yes, this can solve all these things, but just to let you know, you have this list of side effects.
Things have gotten a lot better with the politics though that Christian's talking about. Like, man, 20 years ago, forget it. Creonch, all that kind of stuff. 10 years ago, still kind of whatever. Now you got people, like Dave Jacobs' open door policy. All of our, you got people showing up at Dallas. You got people coming over here. Our people go and train other places. It's good. It's good to do, man. What's the mentality of scarcity versus the mentality of abundance that some people talk about, right? So if you come from a mentality of abundance, and it goes back to that level 3 versus level 4 tribal thing where, oh, I'm great because you suck, or we're all great and we can all be better and get better together, you know. So that's if you come from a mindset of abundance and you come from a, hey, we can all get better together. And I've had to go through some of this, you know. For a long time, people are like, hey, coach, why don't you put your videos and stuff up online and I'm like, no, I don't want, you know. And now we've got bjjcurriculum.com and we're posting our whole curriculum basically. You know, we've been shooting it for years. There's video of Chris as a blue belt and all sorts of guys going back through the years, you know. But I think it's good for the sport. It's good for the art. I think it moves things forward. It makes things available to anytime things are available to be peer reviewed, it holds you accountable. So putting that stuff out there and getting feedback, you know, like nothing would make me happier to know that some instructor was like, man, I got to teach. What am I going to teach this week? Well, let me check out BJJ curriculum and then, you know, watch 20 minutes. Be like, oh, I'm going to do this and this. Oh, you know what though? I like this technique a little bit different. And you know what else would fit in here great? This, you know what I mean? Like just as a touchstone, just as a, like, I'm not expecting, like, you don't have to teach it exactly the way that I teach it. Like, that's just how I teach it. You know, some of the stuff's 6 years ago. You know, there's first degree, right? So it's like, I might teach something a little bit different or a lot different now, but it's all legit. Like people learned how to do stuff and became really good blue belts and really good purple belts and brown belts because of it. So let's put it out there. And then if people have rebuttals and they have stuff they want to add, they can, you know, people do rebuttal videos all the time. So let's get it out there. Let's get it open sourced, you know, like, if, you know, people are like, oh, why don't you make DVDs out of it? Well, people don't really know me, you know, like content's king. You guys are sitting here creating content. That's my content. That's my way to get it out to the, you know, get out in front of the jiu-jitsu universe and contribute. I've gotten so much from the martial arts and jiu-jitsu universe. So if I can help some new people that maybe don't have instructors or that have instructors that aren't as organized in their approach, or even, like I said, helping instructors that don't have the curriculum design background that I have and haven't spent as much time thinking about how to organize this information, just as a jumping off point. You know, I'm really happy to have that out there. And I think it's taken a long time, but I think more and more people are getting that way. But you know, not everybody's there yet.
No, it's unfortunate.
Yeah.
You know, I know for some people, like you said, they come from that traditional background and they're used to the early days of jiu-jitsu. There's a lot of people getting away from that. You can't be like that. Not in the age of sharing. Everything's. I had a couple videos I was thinking about putting together. I was like, oh, I'll try to like put these on iTunes or something. I was like, nah, everything's out there already. I might as well just put it out there for free.
Yeah.